Hi friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. You totally read that right. You can win this tote bag at auction, or you can make it just by watching this tutorial. My friends over at the Fabric Patch channel here on YouTube, they are having an auction to help others that are in need. Check the information box below this video so you don't miss that auction. Enough talking already. Let's get busy making the magic tote bag that I made for breast cancer awareness. I grabbed about 5 fat quarters that had been in my stash for quite a while, and they all have to do with breast cancer awareness, but of course you can use any fat quarters that are in your stash. I'm using the same technique that I used in my crumb cake quilt tutorial from the Fabric Patch. The main idea of the patchwork is to cut different strips in different varying widths. And then you're going to sew them together and then cut those in different varying widths. Find some focal points on your fabric. I happen to find these that had nice sayings on them: hope, faith, strength, and courage. And that worked perfectly. Next, you're going to take those strips and you're going to place them in a log cabin type design around your focal point piece of fabric. I laid mine all out, as you can see here, and then I would cut off the excess that would not be needed. To add even more interest to the patchwork, add in strips of whole pattern fabric, like that right there with the words on it. Once you have your block all set, then you're going to start sewing that bottom piece to the center piece. And then once that's sewn on, then you grab the next piece and add that over and sew that together. When making tiny crumb patchwork like this, it's important that you press after each attachment of fabric and that you square it up right after that so that the next piece goes on nice and squared up. Keep on adding all around that focal point until you get the size that you would like. I made several squared blocks just like this with the different sayings that were on that fabric. And you can see here what I ended up with before I really added it all together to make this tote bag. Let me show you how I made the inside pocket. It wasn't quite long enough, the patchwork part, so I grabbed that word fabric and lifted it up to it. And it made it longer, and that was exactly what I wanted. So I attached those two pieces together, gave the seam a nice hot press, and then I put right sides together. Now I only sewed up both of those long sides. I did not sew along the edge because that's going to be in our seam allowance later. So all I needed to worry about was those two long seams. Take your pocket and put it right side out, and then roll out all those seams with your fingertips so that it's nice and flat, and give it a good hot press. Next, you're going to take and cut the raw edges there so that that is nice and straight to go in the seam allowance of the tote bag itself. Side note, everyone should have this wool mat. You don't have to do the patchwork. You can have this one big piece of fabric that's just one single piece. You don't even have to put the quilting or extra lining or anything in the magic tote bag. But for demonstration for this particular bag, I am going to be using fusible fleece with my all over patchwork. If you are going to use fusible fleece, make sure that it is about a ½ inch away from all of the edges. That will ensure that there's no bulk when we end up sewing it all together. And your back piece also should be the same size as your patchwork piece, or your one whole piece of fabric piece. Typically, you'll need just one piece of fabric for the top portion of the tote bag, and then you're going to fold that in half. I had to use 2 separate pieces of fabric. That's why mine looks like patchwork. You can really do it either way, but just remember, if you add 2 pieces of different fabric together like I did, to add a ½ inch on each side, so a ½ inch altogether. If using the fusible fleece, you only need one piece on one side of that top piece. My other magic tote bag video where I only use one piece of main fabric will be linked at the end of this tutorial. You will need 2 nylon straps, approximately 28 inches each. And since I'm a quilter at heart, was there any doubt that I was going to free motion quilt on the base of this tote bag? So as you can see, this tote bag is quite busy, so I decided on just a very simple meander. That's my go-to anymore when the fabric or the patchwork is just way too busy. So this is what it looks like so far. And if I turn the back around, you can really see all the thread stitching from the meandering. If you free motion quilt like I do, then be sure to square up in case anything shifted. Next, grab your favorite marking tool. Mine's a friction pen that will erase with heat. Let's make some simple markings. 1/2 inch on both ends. Go ahead and mark. Then you're going to fold that right in half, and then you're going to mark the center. You should have 3 marks, one in the center and one on each side. Take one of the side marks and bring it up to the center mark, making both marks kiss. Make sure not to kiss the edge of the fabric. You want the marks to kiss. Now mark that fold. Let's do the same thing to the other side. Lift that side mark up and make it kiss the center mark. Mark the fold area. On that fold area that you just now marked, you are going to measure 3.5 inches on each side of that mark and make a little star. Do the same thing on the other side where you made that fold mark. These 2 marks on either side of that fold mark will be where our straps go. Those are all the marks that you'll need to make. Now let's take out that really long piece that is 8 inches in width. Now it should be folded with a memory crease already in it. Now take that larger piece of fabric, the wrong side, and lift it up to meet the other edge of that long piece, just like you see me doing here in the video. Next, you're going to grab your straps and line the edges of the straps up along the raw edge of both of the fabrics. Be sure to pin all the layers together. Now grab the base of the tote bag only and roll those straps up in it. And then you're going to grab the long skinny piece fabric, lift it up to meet the other raw edges. Then you're going to pin all the way across that entire tube, making sure that everything is nice and secure. The top of the bag and the raw edges of that long skinny piece and all of the strappings should be all pinned together. You should end up with this odd looking tube. It's like a sausage casing or something. But needless to say, we are going to sew 1/4 inch right down that seam, making sure that we catch all of the layers. Now that's very important. So go nice and slow and take your time and you'll catch all of it. We will be stressing that end seam, so be sure to reinforce it. Now it's time to take our sausage tube and turn it right side out. Now this might be a little tricky for some. I try to grab the bottom of the tote bag area and give it tiny tugs. Now don't pull on the straps because we don't want to stress the straps out. Just do your best and take your time. It will come, trust me. And then by the time you get to the center of it, it all just kind of comes right out. And hence the magic of the Magic Tote Bag. The absolute best part about this technique is that there are no visible seams along that entire top portion area where we've connected both of the fabrics. Give those memory creases a good hot press with the iron just to make everything nice and crisp before we attach the straps. Now it's time to lift the straps straight up. Make sure they're not crooked, and once you get them nice and straight, you are going to pin all of them right in place. You can sew your straps down any way that you like, but I'm showing you the path that I take when I sew these straps down and top stitch all along the top area. I know, watching someone sew gets pretty boring, so I'm just going to show you one strap that I sewed on, and I think you get the gist of the whole thing, right? At this point in the process, you should have a bag that looks like it's becoming a tote bag. Now let's deal with that pocket. Isn't it darling? You're going to line it up with the raw edges on the side where you just saw me pointing, and then you're going to just pin it down. You're going to sew off to the left side seam, the bottom, and right down the center. And here it is all sewn up. Perfect for when you want to hide a little something something in your tote bag. You got a pocket for it. Now to trim up that side top piece, and get all that excess off of there. Then you're going to pin wrong sides together because we are going to create a French seam. All along that raw edge, you're going to sew an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then you're going to turn it inside out so that right sides are now facing together. Push that seam out as far as you can with your fingers and then pin in that L shape all along that side seam and the bottom seam. Hopefully, if you did it right with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, you did catch that pocket, the raw edges of that pocket within that seam. So be mindful of that. But otherwise, we should be good to go. We're encasing that entire seam, making a French seam on our Magic Tote Bag. Now you're going to turn it right side out. Press all those seams out with a hot iron. Once all those seams are nice and pressed flat, it's time to admire this beautiful tote bag that you just made with your own 2 hands. I just know you would love to own this tote bag, right? I guess I'll just have to see you at the auction, friend. Wait, it's not over yet. I have so much more that I need to share with you. Click one of the links you see on the screen right now, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.